Hello and welcome to All 49 with me, John Foster, MUFC. We've got Natalie, Reece and Rich with us tonight. How's everybody doing?
Good, thank you.
Good.
Well, thank you.
Been a bit ill, but I'm good now.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I know that you've been unwell last few days, so thank you for coming on there, Nat. And Nat, you've arranged this one today with Reece and Rich. It's always a good one when us four get together, even just behind before we went live. Great conversation. So we're going to try and hold a little bit back until the live show. But Nat, you start us off on this one then. Like, so the topic on the thumbnail is something along the lines of media bias. We spoke about it a little bit before, but certain teams may be getting treated a little bit differently compared to United. Easy for us to always say that. However, we have got a couple of topics that, the proof's there. Do you want to kind of introduce it, Nat, and we'll kind of bounce off each other?
Yeah, so I think it's something that I sent you, and I just wanted us, before I just touch on this is what I sent a tweet out because I saw that when Liverpool were promoted, bearing in mind Liverpool got relegated because they didn't invest. The girls were at Tranmere. The Tranmere pitch was just disgraceful. Everything that happened with that was sort of well documented at the time. But they've since come up. The girls are still in Tranmere's training ground. They're not in Liverpool's new training ground. And, Klopp said something about, we know we've treated them bad, but now we're treating them, now let's hope we do it different. Fair enough. That's fine. But it hasn't changed. Klopp was there when they got relegated and no one really, had any quotes from him then. But just because they got promoted, it's all, oh, this is how they're going to do it right, and what a great guy Klopp is, and I'm thinking, well, he's not that great because look at what's currently still going on. Listen, it's not me bashing Liverpool. I don't want anyone to say that, but I just found that when United did our promotion for Old Trafford, for me it was amazing. Never seen anything like that. There's also, well, we know, you can see pictures, you see videos. We're starting to build the training ground after what happened last year. And that's for the girls to sit, a new kind of base for them. They've been training at Carrington since start of last year. But yeah, every comment about United, maybe it's more from rival fans, is always, you don't respect your women, you don't do this. But then I've never heard anything about Liverpool. It's just all positive from them. And, their players, all the men came out, tweeted everything. And then when United started tweeting about Old Trafford, it's disingenuous, it's disingenuous. Where were they last year when Casey was going? Yeah, it probably is disingenuous, but where's the same energy? That's what I'm trying to say. And before Rich or Reece says anything, I had someone from the media come into my DMs and say, you're on the right track there. So that's all I've got to say. So Rich can deny it and say this and that, but someone else is sort of admitting it to me, so... Yeah.
Kind of your cue, I think, there, Rich.
Do you want me to go? Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know whether it's fans or media. Like I said, I can only ever speak for myself. I thought, and I think I said it, I thought the United promotion at Old Trafford was brilliant. I thought it was fantastic. Was the crowd maybe a little bit lower than you might have wanted? Maybe, but, it's still a very good crowd, and I don't think United did anything wrong in terms of their promotion. I think they went above and beyond, to be honest, and I did see a few other people say it. I think with Liverpool, it is what it is. Things like that become a news story when it's a news story, and the reality is whoever gets promoted, it's a news story. But, with Liverpool, it is slightly different in terms of the media because they're such a big name. And this is probably something we'll touch upon in terms of various different examples through this discussion, but rightly or wrongly, when you're a bigger name, bigger club, it's more of a story because more people are going to read it. So, newspapers, editors, they're just a little bit more interested in it, and I get that. If it was Sheffield United that had been promoted, we wouldn't get the same amount of attention as Liverpool have, and I get that. I completely get that in terms of the reasons why. I do think, to be fair, they did get quite a bit of criticism when they got relegated in terms of that lack of support. I do think, from hearing things around the league, obviously working for a club, I think some things have changed. I don't think it's perfect, but I think some things have changed in terms of their structure. And yeah, I mean, it's just one of those. They've been promoted, so it's a story now, and I'm sure in the summer or next season, wherever they are, if they're mid-table, bottom of the league, they'll stop getting that attention and it'll all go back to, City, Chelsea, Arsenal, United. So I'm not denying that there's a bit more attention around Liverpool than there would be if it was any other team. But I think that's just how the media works. I've said it before on this show before. I use the same term. It's supply and demand in terms of which clubs get the most attention. I agree when I see people on social media saying the Championship as a whole deserves more attention. It does, but there's only still a certain amount of journalists, and they can only do a certain amount of work. So, yeah, I'd like more attention on what we're doing. Sheffield United, we've had a great month. We're doing well, but, nobody's talking about us. But I understand why. I've been on both sides of it. So I get how it works. And I get why Liverpool are getting more attention, rightly or wrongly, than why certain other clubs would.
Go on, Natalie, I can see you've unmuted yourself.
Yeah, no, Reece is happy with me going, but it's not just the Liverpool thing. We talked about it, didn't we? We got that tweet through, and it was vote for your player of your month, and it was half an article about Sam Kerr and Miedema, and Leslie Russo won. And now I'm not seeing the same level of promotion. Now it's Leslie Russo, and I saw Lanzell say something about when United is just negative. It's just, that's what someone came in my day, the same person. Liverpool are the media darlings, whether men, women, we won't hear anything about what's going wrong at Liverpool next year because they love them, when Klopp talks, it's great, everything he says, golden. Oh, yeah.
I think with Leslie, to be fair, I agree with you. I think that's wrong in terms of how that's done, but again, I can understand the reasons why, because, Miedema, Kerr, and that's been a thing that's been drummed up by the media, to be fair, and I include myself in that because I wrote a big article on Kerr and Miedema a few years ago. But it's because, those two have been at the top now for quite a few years. It's become a thing. It's a bit like the Ronaldo versus Messi talk in the men's game, where if those two names are there, they sort of get put above anyone else's. And Sky Sports, you got to remember, they don't just go out to people in Manchester or people in London. People read and can access the Sky Sports website anywhere in the world, whether that's Africa, Asia, North, South America, Oceania. Be a lot of people there that will know Miedema, will know Sam Kerr, maybe don't quite know Alessio Russo yet. So it doesn't shock me that a website like Sky Sports leads with those two in terms of trying to drive people to their website, trying to drive traffic to their website. In terms of the initial thing, I don't know what they did today around Russo winning it because I wasn't in this morning. I saw she win it because the media vote as well. So I was aware who'd won. But again, yeah, I don't think that's a club thing. I don't think that's people saying, oh, Chelsea and Arsenal are bigger than Man United. I think it was more an individual thing of Miedema, Kerr gets more clicks, more headlines than Alessio Russo would in terms of the initial story about who'd been nominated. Again, some will argue that's fair game. Some will say it's wrong. I can see both sides of it. It's not what I do. I don't like that, but I'm not tasked with driving traffic to a major website. So I can't, I can see their side of it. But again, that's just how the media works. Whether, some people like it or not, it's just part of it.
Which, just very quickly, you asked what did the media do when Russo won. All they did was basically put up a short video clip, which was probably already used elsewhere before, and then probably just kind of retweeted it. Whereas when a Chelsea player wins or a Chelsea manager wins Manager of the Month, they'll do a full-on article you know, when Skinner wins, it's basically just a photo of Skinner with his coaching staff. But there always just seemed to be more emphasis, and obviously I do look at these kind of things. Being a Man United fan, when Skinner wins or when Katie Zellum gets a goal of the month, it is basically something very short. Whereas if a Chelsea, Arsenal, City player, more manager wins something, it does seem to be spoken a lot more about. It's a lot more in depth, and then on that article, they'll talk about the past 10 years of won this, have won that, and that's how they're building it up. And I get it; it's great for them 3 teams and them 3 players, but it's not great for United. I'm sorry, go on that.
And I just want to say it, and it links into the Championship, what you were saying, and I suppose like Reece can come in. But if you only talk about 3 teams, what do you think is going to happen? Of course, the coverage is just going to be about those 3 teams, but it's not like, you know, I look at the numbers actually recently. Man United pulls in bigger numbers than Man United. Everton pulled in big numbers, 467,000 or something globally. That was that was more than Premier League match. So why is this resistant to talk about Man United? And then if I talk about Sam Kerr and Miedemar, I wouldn't even have them as the top 2 strikers. There's better strikers out there in France. I'd say Katoto's better than them both. So to be honest, I get what you're saying about global, worldwide, that's a thing. But English media's made it a thing. And, you know, they're not even really, I think, going on. If you're talking about what brings in the most clicks, well, Man United brings in the most clicks, so why aren't you pushing that way? But that's just my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong.
I agree. I do genuinely agree. I think the 2 different things you said there, I think, like I said, I don't think this specific one today is a Man United, Chelsea, Arsenal thing. I think it's a Miedemar, Kerr, Russo thing. I don't disagree. Man United, in terms of the women's game, bring in probably more views, more attention than anybody because of the fan base. I don't think Alessia Russo on her own, though, brings in more than Vivianne Miedemar or Sam Kerr, who are more well-known around the world. I think with the other element of it, I do agree in terms of how it should be covered and what, you know, Man United bring in terms of the coverage. But I saw someone in the comments say, you know, how do you change it and things like that. But, you know, yeah, the English media have made a thing of Kerr v Miedemar. It doesn't mean we don't think Marie-Antoinette Katoto's a brilliant striker, but she's not relevant at the minute to the English media because she's not playing in our league. She doesn't play for our national team. She doesn't play in the WSL, so we don't cover her. We don't watch her week in, week out. The Miedemar Kerr thing only became a thing when Kerr came to England because at that point it was just Miedemar. Naturally, when 2 of the top strikers in the world are playing in your league, it becomes a bit of a thing. And that's what happened in the men's game with Ronaldo and Messi when they both ended up playing in Spain. If Katoto came to England, suddenly it would be a Katoto v Miedemar v Kerr because suddenly she becomes relevant to the English media. We're not dismissing her. She's a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant striker. She is absolutely one of the best in the world, and you could argue she's better or as good as the other 2. I'm not denying that, but it's not our job to talk and write about her every single week, as opposed to 2 players that are playing in the FA Women's Super League that we watch and write about every weekend. That again, you know, the French media will probably talk about Katoto all day long. They probably don't talk as much about Miedemar or Kerr because they're not in their league. So that's sort of what I'd say from that side of it. I see a lot of people say we dismiss other players or we dismiss players from other countries. It's not dismissing them. It's just they're not relevant to what we talk about week in, week out. Once they come to the WSL, that, you know, if Miedemar leaves in the summer, if she went to Barcelona, she went to Lyon, she went to PSG, we'd still talk about her, of course, because it's still relevant in terms of she has played here, but we wouldn't talk about her anywhere near as much, and probably the Kerr v Miedemar thing would be done. So, you know, that's my view in terms of that side of things.
Can I just add 2 things on this? And it's not really my field, so I'm just sort of interested in listening to you 2. But one thing that I didn't necessarily agree with, for whatever reason this happened, is Man United taking a leaf out of the FA's book and announcing that they sold 28,000 tickets and then only 20,000 people turn up on the day of the game. I'm not a massive fan of stuff like that because that's what the FA tends to do for the Lionesses. They say that when Bliss sold out, when it goes on TV and there's only 50,000 seats been allocated. Another aspect on the listening to like the Miedemar, Kerr and Alessia Russo side is I think there's a bit more strategy in the negative marketing towards Man United. Now, I'm not saying there is, but it's literally just come to my head just now listening to you two and looking at some of the articles that come out in women's football. I'm not quite sure if some of the journalists are actually smart enough to think of this, but I think some of the big outlets, if they're constantly pushing negativity out towards Man United, and then the Man United fan base start kicking off, you're actually pushing that article more than if you get, for example, a positive story about Liverpool, because their fan bases are fairly quiet. So in terms of getting the hits and the traffic towards a website, I've been told many times that the easiest way to market something is through negativity. I'm not quite sure, like I said, if some of the journalists in women's football are actually smart enough to think of that, but like Natalie, for example, if a negative story comes out about Man United, you're all over it. You're pushing that story more than, for example, West Ham, if a positive story comes out about West Ham, for example. So it's literally just come to me now, just listening to you two talk about this.
Listen, I just want to say, the person that came into my, let me know, I'm not going to say they work in the media, but I think it is more prevalent in the men's game that happens because, Man United, it just gets the clicks. And I think they do put out negative. They put out everything. They'll put out, saw something the other day, Ten Hag is breathing and he's thinking about joining Man United, and it's just stupid. But they just put out everything now in the men's game. And I think they just put out negative things or have a slant to it that's negative because, like you say, the reaction you're going to get is a it's going to be more than if it's positive, maybe, in a way. And I don't think Rich and his pals are thinking that. But, I think maybe the people who they're reporting to are thinking that. Because, I mean, if we look at, say, what happened in the summer, it was pushed and pushed and pushed, and it's still pushed now. And I look at it and I think, same thing happened to Arsenal. They lost their manager. Yes, they got it in a bit earlier, but they lost their manager. There was issues with training. Look at Liverpool even. They're still not sorted out training. But with Man United, it was the end of the world. And I just think, how could you do that? Like you say, I think the Athletic, that when those two stories were definitely strategic. And then I think, like you say, it's a different, I don't think it's like Molly, Susie, I don't think they're necessarily doing it, or Rich. But I do think maybe, there's guys, the editors, they just look at the whole paper, they don't look at men's or women's, they just look at the whole paper. Oh, it's Man United, well, write it a bit like that. What else can we say? How can we spin it in a way, I do agree with Reece there.
Yeah, if I can just come in, because this is a bullet point as well. I mean, I actually wrote down, do like the media like to watch us fail because we get a reaction. Just touching on that, Rich, obviously Natalie just gave her kind of opinion on that as well. I don't ever think that you or any of the people that we chat to on Twitter are like that, because you've got a relationship with the club, you've got a relationship with the fans and the players. So I don't ever think that you do that because you care too much, I guess. Whereas there's some outlets out there who've probably never been to a women's game before, but they just see it as a job. I could imagine, they've done a bit of research. Oh, Man United fans will kick off about this. They could put a very simple tweet out saying Skinner wants to buy a championship player, knowing full well that 90% of the fan base will probably kick off. Because he's not good enough. And then they can suddenly make a story on that, knowing full well that all the Skinner out hashtags will come back again. And it works. And I'm not saying it's a good thing, because it's not. It's harder for me because I have to start defending Skinner again, and, all this kind of stuff. But I can see that point of view. Rich, do you want to kind of give your kind of say on that?
Yeah, I think Reece is right. First and foremost, we're nowhere near smart enough to think like that. So, but no, I think for me, I can only speak for myself, but I like to think I know my group of colleagues within women's football well enough to be able to say it's probably similar across the board. But there's not a need for any of us to be biased towards any player or team or club or manager or anything. Don't get me wrong, there's one or two journalists that do have an allegiance to clubs because they've grown up, before they were even journalists, they've grown up supporting certain clubs, and to be fair, they openly admit that. But if I go and watch a game, and I know it's been a bit of a joke, and Nat's joked about the fact that I apparently love Man City and want Man City to win everything, but when I went to the derby, what was it, a month ago in the FA Cup at LSV, I don't care who wins that game because it doesn't have any impact on my job at the end of the day. Man United win that game, doesn't change. If Man City win that game, doesn't change anything. I just got to cover the game and talk about the game and write about the game, speak to the managers afterwards, and it's our job to put out there what we think, what we've seen, what we've analysed, what the managers have said to us after a game. I put a quote out about Katie Zellum before that match, from Mark Skinner, and it was a really in-depth, nice quote about her, and it got God knows how many quote tweets of people abusing Mark for what he'd said or abusing Katie because she wasn't playing well apparently, and you think, I'm just putting a tweet out. This is my job. I've asked a question about a player. Here's his answer. Do you know what I mean? That's what we do, and there's not a need for an agenda. People say we have an agenda, but we don't, because there's no need for us to. People say we want the big teams to be in the finals and things like that. Not really, if I'm being honest, because actually that gets quite boring. There's only so many times you can talk about Chelsea v Man City or Chelsea v Arsenal and things like that. You just take it for what it is. We've got no control over who ends up winning the leagues or who plays the finals. We just go and cover them and do what we do. So I don't know. It's people are free to think what they want, but for us, it's we just do our job and we get on with it. And if people like it, great. If people don't, I'm always happy to have that debate. And we have this debate obviously on this podcast regularly, and I'm always happy to come on and talk about it because I think it's good for people to have a bit more of an understanding about what we do at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Rich. Like I said, I don't think it's I don't think it's you get. I just think it's strategically the money men. That's their job, and that's what they will be doing. I mean, I even agree with John to an extent. We've seen it today. Emma said on and she said looked at Ashley Neville and the reaction. But I know the reaction before she's even tweeted that. I think everyone knows the reaction. I think even Rich, you knew the reaction that tweet that you put out about Zellum was going to get. If you didn't, you should have come to me because I could have told you.
But then the thing though, to jump I don't know about the Ona Badger, Ashley Neville stuff at all, but whatever the reaction is, that's what you get. You've said to me however many times over the years now, that's what you guys want. You want stories like that. You want to know what's going on. So at the end of the day, it's not our issue if you don't like who Mark Skinner may or may not want.
No, and I don't think that's the abuse. I don't think that's like I said, I don't think anyone's planning it. I just think, I don't know, it's going to
how many times have you said to me over the last 3-4 years, you just want more transfer stories?
Yeah. But I think as well, it's just going to wind people up. I don't know. It's weird because I look at the men's game and I want less. I don't want to know that he's breathing Erik ten Hag. I don't give a shit. Let him sign the contract. And then when he's our manager, then I'll be bothered. But it's just weird. I think it's United as well. I don't know. I think I think we've talked about it. City are very open, so they get a lot of, I don't know, better coverage. Because I saw the tweet that Emma did, got over 100 interactions, and that's just quote tweets. Probably got even more now, And then the tweet, then Tom did a full article, and it was very complimentary, and it was, it was the way. And I think there are players that are going to leave. He didn't put Becky in it, so I think that if you get what I mean, like they put that tweet out about them signing 2 players before. But I think I get where Emma's coming from. She's got to put out her news, and she knows it's going to bang. Good for her. And I think it's United. If they did it, if they could put out a positive story before negative comes out, then maybe it would be a bit different. Because I haven't seen as many negative stories about Becky leaving, and there's potentially we're leaving because it's not being reported, because they've already given the media a bone in that they've told them they're going to sign 2 players from Atletico Madrid. So it's club in a way. I need to be a bit more strategic. Think about, the club know the reactions to Ashley Neville. You know, so if they could say to Emma, "Don't put that, we'll tell you this," you know, instead, but they won't. She just found out her information and posted it. Good for her.
Yeah,
but then now there's
I don't disagree
negative
with
things
that.
about
Like,
Skinner.
I don't know where the Castellanos Alexandri story came from Tom. I don't know if it was from Man City, from an agent, or whatever. But
then that's why I put it back to both of you. Do clubs brief agent? Do clubs brief media? I know they do in the men's game. Should it happen more in the women's game? Should a club, you know, tell someone, yeah, put this out because it'll make us look positive? Then that covers your base, doesn't it, as a journalist?
yeah, I mean, like for me in my role at Sheffield United, it's a little bit different because nobody cares about us. But like, yeah, last year when we were signing Bradders and Jess Clark, like 2 former England internationals, I was all happy to be shouting it from the rooftops because I knew that was a good story. When I found out, say, like Katie Wilkinson was leaving, you try and keep that in-house. You don't want that getting out because that's a negative story. Like I said, coming back to City, United, whatever, I don't know where those stories come from. I don't know who's telling Emma what. I don't know who's telling Tom what. But if I was Man City and I thought we had a chance of signing 2 very good players from the Spanish league, yeah, I'd probably want it out there. Ash Neville, I mean, I don't know. Like, but at the end of the day, like, whether you think maybe Emma's looking for a reaction or she knows the reaction, if she's been told genuinely that's who Man United are looking at, it's not for Emma to worry about the reaction. It's for Emma to do her
No,
job.
but like that's what I'm saying. The club needs to think about it a bit more strategically.
But it might not come from the club. It could come from anybody.
club.
It could come from an agent. It could come from anything. I'd be very surprised if it was from Man United. Because
but you know what I mean, Rich.
They don't operate
they know
in terms of where they go and leak things to the media. So I'd be very surprised if it came from Man United.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. There should be elements where they do leak things in a way.
I don't disagree.
Maybe.
I don't disagree, but I say that selfishly as a journalist. But it's part of what we talked about before. Everybody looks after number one. Reece is an agent. He does what suits him best. Me as a PR person for Sheffield United, I do what suits us best. You know, everyone looks after number one at the end of the day. Man United or any other club will have their reasons for how they deal with the media. It's not, you know, at the end of the day, it's not all about us as journalists. We don't have a divine right for clubs to come and leak all their exciting news to us. Some do, some don't. It's up to them. But, you know, like we've said, we all look after number one at the end of the day in terms of we put our jobs first.
The conversation kind of moved on a little bit, but I just wanted to let the conversation go. But I just want to bring it back just one more time to Kerr and Miedemar. Reece, I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on this one because it kind of links in with kind of like you being an agent as well. When we was talking a little bit about those 2 being the most high-profile players and they're being built up because of the media, how good would it have been if we also build up other players as well as? So, for example, that would help grow the women's game. So the story's out there for Russo. So Rich rightly said that Russo wouldn't make a great story at the moment. And I kind of get that because she's not as well known. However, as fans, as media outlets, as journalists, agents, we can we can do something about that to make Russo sell a story. You know, you could quite easily say she's going to be the England's next number 9 for the next 10 years, you know, which is possibly true. You know, there's no lie there whatsoever. She's having a great season, potentially better than the other 2 as well. You know, Reece, what are your thoughts on this? Because we could quite easily, it doesn't have to be a Kerr medium. I think we've created that as a media outlet, you know, as media outlets, haven't we? You know, I appreciate that they've won awards for a reason, but we can still promote other players to help get clicks and help get people to read those articles as well.
Absolutely, and I saw what you put out on Twitter earlier about me sort of selling players and promoting players, and is it good or bad? But like listening to you earlier about the debate between Alessia Russo, Viv Miedemar, and Sam Kerr, and you saying that the media don't push Alessia Russo the same way. Well, then who's going to do it? Then it falls back onto our shoulders as an agent to push the player. Do I think more should be done for Alessia Russo? Absolutely. But if the mainstream media aren't going to do it and Man United aren't going to do it, that only leaves one party to do it, and that's us as an agent. So you know, we have to build the players. But again, it depends on who's representing the player on that side. I mean, anyone that signs for me knows the way that I operate in terms of actively being a bit of a salesman across social media, because if you're performing but no one's covering it and no one's pushing your name out there, how are you going to get a move? How are you going to get into the England squad? How are you going to become more commercially attractive to the endorsement deals if no one's pushing your name out there? But as Rich said, everyone's looking after number one. So if Alessia Russo's only got 6 months left on a contract, no wonder Man United aren't pushing her. But then it looks like, then it has to drop down onto someone else's shoulder, whether that's us or the mainstream media. And if the mainstream aren't going to cover it, then we have to build that player, and we have to build that narrative surrounding that player.
But I think that again comes back to sort of what we said earlier in terms of players promote themselves in the end, and Alessia now is sort of on that route towards doing that. I think, look, I love Alessia to bit, and I wrote a big profile on Alessia now about 4 or 5 years ago, when she was like complete unknown to a lot of people, because I knew she was going to be a very, very good player. But you can't at this stage compare in terms of the media coverage, because she's not. Vivian Miedemar's been doing it now top level for quite some time. She's won the European Championship. She scored in the European Championship final. She's already smashed every record going in the Women's Super League. Sam Kerr's another one in terms of what she's done. National team. Alessia is just going on that journey now. She's just starting to creep into England, creep into the starting 11. She's starting scoring goals now regularly for Man United. If Alessia goes on and does something at the Euros, or she goes on and is the top scorer in the league next season and scores goals at the World Cup, she'll start getting that coverage because she'll become a big name in terms of the big national newspapers, worldwide coverage. Editors that maybe don't know much about women's football, that don't know names outside the sort of the big names, will start paying attention. But like I said, journalists can talk about it, agents can talk about it. At the end of the day, if Alessia keeps putting the ball in the back of the net, she's doing her own promotion. That's how Miedemar got to this stage. That's how Kerr got to this stage. We didn't do anything really. We coattailed off the back of their success.
I actually slightly disagree with you on both cases there, Rich. You mentioned that players promote themselves. Players don't actually like promoting themselves. The amount of players that...
I don't mean like literally. I mean in terms of if they keep scoring goals, people are going to talk about them more.
No, absolutely. But I mean, you've just said there that the mainstream maybe don't want to cover Alessia Russo because she's fairly new on a journey with England. So she has to go to the Euros and set the world alight before she gets any coverage.
I don't think we don't want to. We do, but in terms of like the Sky Sports thing, talking and leading with Miedemar Kerr in terms of the Player of the Month nominations over Russo, I get that because they're bigger profiles. That's not because Alessia's done anything wrong. It's just she's a couple of years behind them. Those two have established themselves by scoring goals, by winning tournaments, by smashing records. That's why they get talked about more often. And if whether it's right or wrong, that's just how it is. And if Alessia starts doing that, people will start talking about her more. And that's not just Alessia. That's any player. Ella Tomb's kind of similar in that now. She's on that route to where people are standing up, paying a bit more attention. And within the small sort of women's football media, they do get talked about because we know about Ella Toomb, we know about Alessia Russo, but on the outside of that, in terms of more mainstream media, media people that only come and cover the women's game when there's a major tournament every couple of years, they probably don't. They'll know Miedemar.
No, they know about Tooney. That's what I will say. They maybe don't cover Leslie, but they know about Tooney now. There's people that just, the Man United fans never watch the women's game, but they say, "Oh, Tooney." Everyone knows about Tooney now. Trust me.
But I'm not sure like the mainstream, the real mainstream media that come into the women's game once every 2 years. I'm not sure they do.
Watching the Euros, they'll all be talking about Tooney.
But that's the thing, isn't it? If she starts doing it in the European Championship, everybody is going to be talking about her.
So what happens, Rich? I know Natalie wants to come in on a separate subject, but if Tooney, just a simple question, if Tooney and Russo were playing for City, Chelsea and Arsenal right now, do you think they'll be more hyped if the performances was exactly the same? But if there was in that big three, do you think there would be articles and stories out there saying, look, this is England's next central attacking midfielder for the next 10 years, the next number 9 for the next 10 years, You've got to look out for them. Will we see more of them on TV, this, that, and the other? Would you think that might be the case?
Yes. Yes.
Nat, I'll say yes. Honestly, I can only compare it to other sort of young English players. And to be honest, in terms of how much I see their names pop up now on social media or in articles within the women's football media, I probably see as much of Russo and Toon as I do anybody else. I think maybe Hemp is the other one in terms of performance-wise. But like Wubben-Moy at Arsenal, you know, I see more about Russo and Toon than I do Wubben-Moy or Anna Patton, for example.
Can I just say who I've seen more of and then don't even play? Lauren James. Mainstream media is talking about Lauren James, and I love Lauren. I wanted to do best. She's my sister, yeah. But she's with Reece. They're pushing that. Chelsea. Everyone loves Chelsea, you know. Boom. And what you see, all the adverts, Lauren James.
But Lauren James is already, in terms of when she broke through, even before Man United, when she broke through at Arsenal and made a debut there at 16, then she went to Man United and, you know, she sort of ripped the championship up. She came up to the WSL as like the big, exciting young player at United. She's almost already forged that reputation where people will talk about her sort of no matter what. And
what's she done though?
Again, rightly or wrongly, a big part of that will come from the fact she's Reece James's sister. She, you know, they get a lot of attention of that. You see articles talking to both of them, brother, sister, both at Chelsea, both, you know, England hopefuls. Like, the media will lap things like that up. Absolutely, whether that's right or wrong, they just will. Lauren James has already forged a reputation for herself in terms of A, what she's done on the pitch when she's been fit and playing, but B, the reputation she's now got, the reputation she's got from being linked to her brother, the reputation she's got from what we've said about her. And again, whether that's right or wrong, but that sticks. That sticks. And look, when Lauren James is fit and firing, she will be one of the best players of her generation. I've got literally no doubt about that. And I said that when she was at Man United. I don't think anybody's, you know, amiss to that because it's clear when you watch her. So, yeah, people still talk about her. I get that. But I get why as well.
Nat, it looks like Ellie's kind of read our mind regarding the next topic about the Lionesses. Do you just want to touch on that one with maybe like the call-ups and?
Yeah, okay, we'll touch on that before because
No.
yeah, no. Because I was just thinking about what we were talking about hype and you know, and the players maybe that don't get the recognition, and what Reece said about how he's got to come in and do that kind of hype, and I think in a way, Reece is better than the hype than us. And Reece, I know we talked about it just before we went on, but one who I am seeing getting the hype now, and no one talked about her before. And every time now I'm seeing the talk, I'm thinking, yeah, well, I told you that she was better than these established players. Honor, just seeing the main Twitter from Barclays. Oh, let's talk about Honor. How would you describe her? Quote tweeting the little Spanish queen emoji. That, yeah, myself, I said, and it was Rich, and it was Molly, and us all them. Lucy Bronze is coming back, and Honor joined at the same time. Where's Lucy Bronze now? No one's talking about Lucy Bronze because Honor surpassed her, yeah, on the pitch. But then I was always convinced of that. I was always convinced that she would do better. She's young, she's up and coming. Lucy Bronze is on the way down. Even if you look at someone like Ellen White on the way down, but yeah, well, it sort of links back. England are still picking these players that are on the way down. I looked at Maya Letizia last week, you know, when we played them. She was absolutely standout, the best player in the part. And then when I look at, say, Honor, if she does leave, the only player for me would be Maya. And I'm thinking, how's Lucy Bronze? I mean, I've not watched a lot of City, but how is Lucy Bronze getting in over Maya? There's other strikers out there. How are they not playing over Ellen White? Ellen White don't even play anymore for City, but yet it's still getting in. We look at someone like Beth England, never played 2 minutes. Yeah, scored goals, but how's she getting in? I'd even say you'd play Lucy Watson over Beth England, you know? And I'm sure Reece knows his own clients who should be getting in, because I just feel like there's this mafia now. And I've always said there's a mafia. And Leanne Sanderson said it. Go on, yeah.
Can I just point out that I put a tweet out about this last week, and one of Richard's comments were because some of the players train well, so maybe these players are good in training.
I mean, look,
training doesn't matter. England are losing games.
what's-
Training doesn't matter. Win games. You know, you see them girls come out there playing week in, week out, and they're getting ignored. For what reason? Doesn't make sense, but that's my opinion.
Can I just say off the back of that tweet is basically what you've just summarised there, Nat. The amount of abuse I got on Twitter, especially my direct messages, is a joke, and that wasn't really aimed at any particular person. It were more aimed at different countries, not necessarily targeting England. But I think just sort of going back there to the mainstream media and what players they want to cover. We're going into a Euros here trying to build English stars, trying to push the England national team, and we're covering other players. We should be building Alessia Russo, Ella Toone, because they're the people that are going to represent England. They're the people that we want to go and sell the shirts for this summer. They're the people that we're going to be watching on TV all summer while we're waiting for men's and women's football domestically to come back. But no one's going to recognise them if the mainstream media aren't pushing them, and if we're pushing Viv Miedemar instead. We should be building the next England stars by now.
So, Rich, what do you think would sell better then if you did an article on a Jill Scott or an Ellen White, or if you did an article like 5 English stars of the future? You know, is that not you personally? I'm on about Rich, just in general. You know, what kind of thing would excite a journalist the most? You know, something quite comforting where you know where you stand with a Jill Scott or Ellen White interview, or would you prefer to maybe do an article about the youngsters?
No, if it was an interview, I'd rather do something with one of the young players, to be honest. But a couple of little things that got said during that whole thing there. The first thing Nat said about Badger and Lucy Bronze and how Lucy Bronze coming back to Man City got a lot more attention than Badger to Man United. That, to me, though, is just absolute common. We're the English media at the end of the day. Probably not.
Yeah, but the tables have turned now, innit? The tables have turned. Where's Lucy Bronze's name?
But this is what I came back to saying earlier. We're not interested in performances. It doesn't really matter to us who plays well. We just go and cover them. But in terms of a transfer, surely you can understand why to the English media, Lucy Bronze, who's one of the most high-profile English players, coming back to Manchester City, got a lot more attention than a Spanish player who was.
No one's saying that, but what I'm saying is, then what Reece is saying, why are we not talking about our young English players? Why are we not talking about Maya Letizia? For me, she's better than Lucy Bronze now. Why is Maya not in that squad? And then they've called up. Go on.
Nat, you have more followers on your Twitter than what half a journalist do in women's football. So I think that sort of goes back to topic one on this. That's why the negativity comes, because you actually push their articles more than what they do as journalists. So, but I 100% agree with you. And I think the comment there, the reason why we're not covering them is because, A, I think sort of last time I was on this show, we went down to it, but sometimes a bit of lazy journalism. And B, because no one knows about them. And then we come back to sort of people criticising me for pushing players too much. Well, if the clubs and the mainstream media aren't doing it, who's going to do it?
Me and Natalie, I mean, we've always been like, we've done this show for 18 months, and obviously, we've followed the girls for a lot longer as well. We're interested in players that we don't even know about who are coming onto the scene, whether it be young English players or foreign players, of other clubs like this as well, Reece. I mean, do you ever see any Chelsea fans, City fans, Liverpool fans, Arsenal fans, are they as enthusiastic to get this new information, or are they just happy with the same names as that them used to?
I think the key thing is, and Nat touched upon this earlier, in terms of journalists don't necessarily write what fans want to read. They
Is that an issue, though, Rich? We're
No,
not giving the fans what they want.
Maybe, I don't know, but it's different for me because I'm freelance, so I can go out and write one. I said this last time, it'd be interesting to get a Susie or a Molly or a Tom or a Katie or someone like that on the show to talk about it, because they might be slightly better positioned, or they would be better positioned to talk about the demands of the national media than I would, where I can go out and do what I want. They're doing what their editors want. They have an editor, they have a boss who's saying, you go and do this, you go and do that. It's like people say to me, and I got it today, I got it yesterday, why are you talking about Steph Houghton? Because Steph Houghton's one of the most high-profile footballers England's ever had. She was, until yesterday. still the England captain, and she's been the England captain for 7 years. Whether Steph Houghton is going to a major tournament or not is a big story. Whether people like that or not, it's nothing to do with she plays for Manchester City. And it'd be the same with Harry Kane. Harry Kane had an injury before a tournament a couple of years ago. I can't remember which one it was. It was all anybody was talking about was Harry Kane going to be fit for a major tournament. If your national team captain is injured and they're a race against time to be fit for a major tournament, that is a big news story. Every national newspaper, every editor is going to want to know, is Steph Houghton going to be fit? That will get more read or more clicks than some young player that nobody really knows about yet outside of women's football.
This is what annoys me though, Rich. Sorry, and I know I'm cutting you up, but no one's denying that. Okay, yeah, they're going to get more clicks. But do you want clicks or do you want to win trophy? That's what I don't understand. For me, it feels like England just want the clicks.
But my
job's not
to win a trophy. My job's to...
I know. But no, it is your job because you work for a club, so it's the same thing now. You know, it's the club job is to win. The national team job is to win. Yes, Steph Houghton, great. That's not really the business, so that's why she's been taken the captain off. But why did it take so long? Steph's not played since 2021. Why are we still going on about it? She's finished. It's over. Why are we not seeing Maya Letizia? You know, what I will say, one journalist who has always bigged up the youth players, and I did see her articles and I did read them, and she talked about what you just said, 5 young players. Amy, who you went to the 19s with. I don't know if I think Oprah said her name right. That might, because I know it's spelled a bit different. But she talked about Georgia Fox, Aggie Beaver-Jones. I mean, God, when she played against Sheffield, for me, she was a standout player for Bristol. Obviously, Lucy Watson. There's other players there. I've seen some other footage. I mean, for us, Man United fans, Safia, absolutely bigged up. And yeah, they're under 19s. I get it. But I look at some of those under 21s and I'm thinking, these are the girls that are going to come through. But yet we're still out here picking 35-year-old Jill Scott. I don't understand. And then that's why Leanne Sanderson said it. And everyone was like, oh, you're brave. Why is she brave? For saying, are we picking players on reputation or are we picking them on form? That's not brave for me. That's normal. But yet, all we're seeing is Jill Scott, Steph Houghton, this one, Jordan Nobbs. None of them are playing it half decent. But what I will say, yes, they might not be good enough, but Shannon O'Brien, Molly Pike, they're actually playing. Why are we not seeing them? Doesn't make sense to me. Because then I'm seeing young players like we just talked about, Katoto, Baltimore, Darley. They're going to rip Steph Houghton inside out, right? And all these players. And I'm thinking, you know, I even talked to you about it, Rachel Daly, great player, put her in a squad. If she's not fullback, why, you know, for me, England's best fullback is Maya Letizia. Why is she not there? And you've not answered it yet.
Well, I mean, there's a lot to unpack with what you said. In terms of, do we want to win? Yeah, of course we do. Serena Wiegmann is the defending European champion. So she knows how to win a tournament. So do you think she's picking a squad not to win?
They're picking squads based on thingy, like Leanne said. They're picking it based on reputation, not on who's playing the best.
Why would Serena, she's been here for 6 months?
I don't know. Go and ask the FA. Why would they do it? I don't know. She's getting the pressure. You can tell, you know, why is it taking this long to rip Steph Houghton of the captaincy? She must have known from ages that she wasn't going to be playing.
But do you not think Serena Wiegmann is picking her squad because she thinks that's the squad that she can win the tournament with?
I don't know why they're picking it. They're picking it to, like I said, pick it on
you threw out some names there. I mean, Reece, you can have your say on this as well, because obviously you came and watched the game yesterday. Look, I love Lucy Watson to bits, and she'll go on and be a very good player. She should be nowhere near the England senior squad at the minute. None of those 19s yesterday should be, because they're playing against kids their own age. And Wales were not great, by the way. Like, they were okay, but they weren't great. They've got, if they're going to go in the senior squad, they've got to go and play against some of the best defenders, best midfielders, best adult players who are physically strong, technically strong in the world. Certainly in Europe, obviously, with it being the Euros. Those kids yesterday, not a single one of them anywhere near ready to go and play. So, and I get it. And there's this yearning across football, men's and women's, because I see it at Chef working in our academy. We get fans all the time because we really promote our academy players at Sheffield United. And we get fans going, get them in the first team, because they're ripping it up in the under-18s, where they're playing against kids their own age. And then the ones that do go into the first team, they have really bad games, and then fans are caning them because they're nowhere near ready. But fans get excited because they're young players and they want to see them. Don't get me wrong, some will make it. We had the same conversation with the Man United Academy the other week after they won the Youth Cup final. But they were playing against other 16-year-old girls, their own age. They're nowhere near. Not even if they went into the first team now and played against strong, tough, experienced defenders, they get eaten alive. There's the route for them all to go on. Some of the 23s, maybe, because they're the ones that are on that step closer. The England under-19s yesterday, none of them are even close to the level of the England first team. Not even close. And Reece, I don't know what you think in terms of the level.
I just want to touch on what Stu said. City and Chelsea were after Maya. She stayed because she wanted to get game time. So let's not Maya. Her name is. Sorry, I was told it. So let's not act like she wouldn't be in a Champions League team. And that's why I'm saying the badge doesn't fit, Stu. The badge doesn't fit. If she was in City right now, there's no way if Maya Letizia is playing for City, even on the bench, she'll be called up. So this is what I'm saying. It's always on reputation. Reputation isn't just of what they've done previously, because that's why I think Gabby George has been called up over her. Gabby George has been called up because she's been in that squad previously, not because she's on the most formed 23 defender.
I think Maya Letizia is a very, very good young player. And don't get me wrong, she's probably going to be one of the next ones to make that step up. But you say about if she was playing for Manchester City, she'd get called up. Maybe she would, but and again, rightly or wrongly, I don't really know which side of this I stand on, to be honest. I can see both sides, but is that a huge shock? You look at any national team squad, and this is what John messaged me about earlier on in terms of one of the topics. Is there a bias in the national team towards the top 3-4 clubs? I don't think it's a bias, but yeah, I mean, most of the England squad is made up from Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal, Man United, because they're the best 4 teams. That's where the best players end up.
But if they're not playing, how can they be picked?
You look at any national team in the world. You look at France's national team right now. It's Lyon, it's PSG, it's Bordeaux. You look at Spain's. I looked at Spain's squad today because they're playing Brazil tonight. Only 4 players play for a club that's not Barcelona, Real Madrid, or Atletico. You look at Germany's squad. They all play for the top 4. 95% of them play for Bayern, Wolfsburg, Frankfurt, or Hoffenheim. It's like in Formula One. People always say Lewis Hamilton wins because he's in the best car. Max Verstappen wins because he's in the best car. Yeah, of course he does, because he's the best driver.
Yeah, but if you're not playing, how can you get picked? That's what Reece said. If you're not playing, how can you get picked? If you're on the bench and come on for 2 minutes, why are you in the squad? That doesn't make sense.
That's the same conversation I've been having on social media. Every single squad announcement. It's not about form. You can't just pick players on form every other camp because you're going to be picking 20 different players. Serena Wiegman's no different to Mark Skinner or Gareth Taylor, and they want a settled 11. That's why this camp, I saw Tom Gary's article last week where he said we should have rested everybody and picked the kids. Well, I respect Tom a lot. Get on with him. Good mate. Good journalist. I wholly, and I think I said that to you, Nat, the other day, I wholly disagreed with that article. And this is not just an England thing. You look at any national team. Look at all the national teams that are playing. Look at Sweden right now. They're, 15, 16-0 up. They've picked their entire first 11, even though they're only playing Georgia. England have picked their strongest squad. France have picked their strongest squad. Spain are playing Scotland next week. They've picked Alexia. They've picked Bonmati. They've picked Mappy Leon. None of these nations right now are preparing for these games this week. They're just in the way. It's just part of the COVID-affected schedule. You wouldn't usually be playing North Macedonia 3 months before a major tournament. It's just how it is with the Euros and the World Cup only being a year apart. All the national teams this week, they're all preparing for the Euros. So they've all picked their squads that they think are going to the Euros. If the England squad now is the same in July, that should not be a shock to anybody. Every national team right now is picking their... It's not about the young players. It's not about next year. It's not about the World Cup. It's about the Euros. They're all picking their squads for the Euros right now. These games, they're just in the way. For England, it's a case of go to North Macedonia, play the game, win the game, come home. They won't be training for that this week. They're training for the European Championships. So they're picking the squad that they think is going to the European Championships.
I agree with you. I agree with you slightly on that, Rich. You just mentioned Laverty, the squad shouldn't be picked on form, and if that was the case, they'd have 20 new players in every camp. If the players in the national team are playing consistently well at domestic level, then it would be a settled squad on the international team, because it would be the same squad because they're playing consistently well at club level. But I mean, if you've got someone, if you like, you look at Ash Neville and you see stuff on social media about Ash Neville. If Ash Neville's playing very, very well constantly for Spurs, but constantly getting overlooked, and if she's playing better than whoever, when is she going to get a chance? At what point does she get given an opportunity in the national team? And I mean, like we had a similar conversation yesterday, that it tends to be the same players that come through with 16s, 17s, 18s, 19s, 23s, first team. But if you're 24 and you're the top goal scorer in the WSL, does that mean that you don't get an opportunity in the national team? Just because you've not played in the younger age groups for England?
I think it's hard.
It has to be picked on form. And whoever... It's a question that someone needs to ask Serena at the next press conference. How do you pick your team? Is it based on form, or is it based on a settled squad?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I asked Phil Neville that exact same question a couple of years ago. I can't remember. I put the answer out on social media somewhere, and people didn't like it. So even when you asked the question, I can't remember, but I will pull it up at some point. But this is what people say: ask Serena Wiegman, ask Phil Neville, ask Mark Sampson, whatever. And it's funny because I see it all the time. When Mark Sampson left, people went, "Oh, it'll change now." And then Phil Neville came in and it didn't. And then people went, "Oh, it'll change now," when Reece came in and it didn't. And then people went, "Oh, it'll change now," when Serena comes in, and it hasn't. And at some point, like, when does the penny drop? Don't get me wrong, form is an element of it, but some people go on as if it's the only element of but people make it out like it's an England thing. But I've just said it, you look at the France squad, the Sweden squad, the Spain squad, the Germany squad, any of the 16 nations, what their squads look like this week will be what their squads look like in July. I'll guarantee.
I agree.
Yeah.
Where do you draw a line? Like, let's take the right back position. Let's take Lucy Bronze, Maya Le Tissier, Ash Neville. Ash Neville's having a good season. Don't get me wrong. I'm not denying that. Maya Le Tissier is a good prospect. I don't think Lucy Bronze is doing anything wrong, particularly, by the way. I don't think she's at the level she was 5-6 years ago. I don't think she's had a bad season. I think she's playing quite well when I've watched Man City. So let's say in January, when they have the January camp, Ash Neville's the best right back in terms of WSL form. So you call her up. Then a month later, maybe she's had a bad month, so you call Lucy Bronze up. And then
if Lucy Bronze has been better over that 4-week period, then she deserves to be called back.
But then if Lucy Bronze then has a bad month, and you bring Maya Le Tissier in, so you brought 3 different right backs in.
It keeps players on the toes. It keeps players on the toes.
How do you build a settled 11?
Well,
listen, I just want to talk.
If I'm a national
why
team,
is building a settled 11 at national team level? Why is it different to club level?
But you know what?
As a manager,
for Matt Skinner at Man United, suddenly Ona Badger is playing really well. She's one of the best fullbacks in the league. No one's arguing that. If she has a bad week of training, do you put Martha Harrison the next game, or do you say, no, actually, Ona Badger is my best right back, so I'm playing Ona Badger?
Listen. Lucy Bronze isn't even the best right back, so let's just get over that now. Lucy Bronze is not the best right back. Maya is. And that's no disrespect to Ash Neville. She's in the best form. But look at it strategically. When is Maya going to get her chance? That's what you should be asking. And yeah, obviously she's come through all the ranks. I get where you're coming from, Reece. It should be some kind of... Look at Jamie Vardy when he came in. He never went through no ranks, but he still got his call up. So what if...
I know, Rich, you said that you asked Phil Neville the same question, but we've now got a different manager, so it needs to, Serena might have a different philosophy than what Phil Neville has, but I don't think it's a difficult question to ask at a press conference. Look, Serena, we want to get behind you at the Euros. Let's have a bit of transparency. Like, I don't think it's a difficult question. It's just being transparent with the fans that are essentially going to turn up to the matches, watch you on TV. We just want to know how you operate as a manager and how you pick your squads.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that at all, but I get the feel some people think, is she picking a... Serena Wiegman wants to win this tournament. She's a good coach. She has won this tournament before. She's the defending champion. She's picking the squad she thinks will win. She's got no reason not to. She thinks they're the best 23 players, whether it's form, whether it's experience, whether it's previous European tournament experience, whether it's how they play together. as a unit, whether it's I don't know, but she will be picked. You know, people say, why is Nikita Parris in? On the surface of it, I don't disagree, because she's not playing that well for Arsenal. She's not playing that well for England. There will be a reason. Serena Wiegman is a top coach. She's not just picking a player because she offers nothing to the squad. If anybody thinks a manager like Serena Wiegman will pick any player because they don't offer something to a squad, that's not how it works.
No, I know, but if that's men's football, there is journalists out there that would say, look, I'm sure you've seen on social media there's been a bit of an uproar here about the squad selection. Can you just explain why you've chosen X over someone else? I don't think it's a different question, but
they're too scared, Reece. They're too scared to ask her that question. Reece is too scared. They're too scared because they're worried that the press pass will get revoked. That's what it is.
Well, I asked Phil Neville it 2 years ago, so it's nothing to do with that. But
well, retweet it so we can all see it.
We talked about that last week, Reece, with Harry Maguire, and it comes back to what people say about Ellen White. Harry Maguire. What's more important? Harry Maguire is not playing well for Man United. I absolutely agree. I watch Man United every week. Unfortunately, he's not playing well. For England, he does nothing wrong. He's done very well. He had a great European Championships. So you look at Serena Wiegman, Ellen White, for example. Yeah, she's on the bench quite regularly at Man City at the minute. Not denying that. When she plays for England, she scores more often than not. And she scores in big games as well, does Ellen White. When it comes to tournaments, World Cup, she was one of the top scorers. Olympics, she was one of the top scorers. Even recently, Arnold Clark against Germany, she was the one who scored the opening goal. If Ellen White's playing well for England, should that be more important to Serena Wiegman than what she's doing for Manchester City?
What I want to know, though, I don't care about Ellen White. Ellen White, Russo should be playing over Ellen White. That's what I say. But England, it's the same lineup in 2019 as it is now. Who's different? I can't think of anyone that's different. It's the same. When is the young kids going to get a chance? That's all, when.
Surely there's players in the under-23s, and this will unsettle a lot of players, and I know it will because I've seen it happen with my own eyes. There'll be players in the under-23 squad that'll be disillusioned now, sat at St George's Park thinking, why am I playing with the 23s? But yet this player's in the first team. And I know that because I've got players in the Wales team, in the Scotland team, that are feeling that right now. But are looking at players in the first team, Wales and Scotland, saying, well, this player's not played for 7 months. I'm playing well here at club level in the Championship or wherever. And I'm sat here playing under-21s or under-19s.
I know players that want to leave, that want to go and change the nationality because of it. What, if someone's playing better than other people, why, when are the 23s going to get a chance? There's the same 23s that did the 19 Euros in Scotland all those years. So they've then gone up to the 23s. How long are they going to sit in the 23s for?
Rich, if I can just ask you one more question just on this, and then I know we're running out of time, but we want to speak to Reece as well. Reece is kind of getting away with it. I think Rich has got all the pressure today, but Reece is just sitting there.
I'll sit here all night. I don't mind it. I like
no,
it.
It's all good. This one's an easy one, Rich. We've been speaking a lot about the well-known players and the next generation, the spotlight not being on them as much as it should be. How about from a journalist's point of view then? When these players eventually retire, you'll kind of have little people to talk about because nobody will already know the next generation because we haven't spoken about them enough. So it's all about bringing them through gradually, as you would as a player. The manager would bring the player through gradually. As journalists, could you bring the players through gradually there maybe?
I don't really think about it, to be honest. I think it just happens naturally. But these young players, they'll make it. The ones that are good enough, they make it. I mean, Nat said the squad's not that different to 2019, but you've got Roebuck, you've got Hampton, you've got Carter, you've got Stanway, Zellum, Hem, Toon, Russo. None of them were there 2-3 years ago. The good ones make it. I remember, people say why is Jill Scott still in the squad? Well, who else is there?
Told you, O'Brien and the other one.
I went to the Under-20 World Cup in 2018 and I watched the England youth team, and the front four was Russo, Hemp, Stanway and Chloe Kelly. And you could tell they'd make it. They were top players. You knew they'd make it. the midfield that played in that tournament, one of them's now on the bench in a WSL team, and the other two play in the Championship. There's a lack of midfielders coming through. There's a lack of players coming through in positions that England need it. You have to be good enough, and the ones that are good enough, they do. People say young players don't get in the squad. Roebuck's 22, Hampton's 21. You know, Katie Zellum has made it in now. She's 26, so you know she's not even a youngster. She's made it in because she's playing well. Hemp's 21, Tomb's 22, Russo's what I think 22, 23. The ones that are really good enough, they will get there. They will get there, and it's proven. Nat says that the squad's no different to 3 years ago. It actually is in quite a lot of ways. It actually is different in a lot of ways. Yeah, there's still a lot of experienced players. Yes, there's players that are in their 30s, but you don't suddenly become past it and over the hill once you hit 30. So it's not on us to big up the young. You know, the young players. Like I said at the start, the young players that are good enough. And I think this will happen with Maya, and I think it will happen with Lucy Watson in the future and others. When they're ready and they're good enough, they'll get there, and the proof is there. Reece can say that people are disillusioned, but if you're good enough, you will get there, because the managers will want you there if you're good enough, and that's why Russo and Toon and Hemp and Stanway and Jess Carter and people like Jess Carter dropped out for a few years. She's earned her way back in by playing well. The goalkeepers, Mary Earps is 29, and she's probably going to be England's number one because she's earned it. Yes, she got a little bit of luck, Roebuck got injured and whatnot, but she's taken it and she's got back in. For me, the coaches see everything. They know absolutely. We know nothing compared to them. They have all the data. They see them train every single day, whether it's youth teams, senior teams, whatever. They know where they stack up against their opposition. When Maya Letitia is ready, they'll put her in the squad. Trust me on that.
When she leaves Brighton, because the badge don't fit. But anyway,
why is Hannah Hampton in?
I don't know, because she's young, innit?
Yeah.
Because they have to, because there's no one else.
Does the Aston Villa badge fit more than the Brighton badge?
Well, why is Jill Scott in? Jill Scott's, this is what I'm saying. It goes back. Yeah, she's playing at Villa, but she had to leave City to go. Can't have too many badges that stand out, Rich.
I genuinely don't believe we have any midfielders coming through that are ready to take that place. That's my genuine.
You know what? I don't rate Leicester particularly, but I do say Shannon O'Brien is very, very good, and I would see her. I don't know if Reece reps her, but I do think she is very good.
England midfield that's in the system right now, and look, this might be unfair. I don't know. It comes back to what Reece said about, do you have to come through the system? I think almost yes, you do in a way. I think it helps certainly. I mean, I don't think there's many players. I think maybe Beth England was the one in terms of when she went to Chelsea and started doing really well. Beth England didn't really come through the England youth setup. I think you're always likely to see players come through that have gone through that process of the youth teams, that have worked with those coaches, that have been through that system, that have played at youth tournaments, got that experience. The next one for me, in terms of, and I said this yesterday to Reece, and I mean, to be fair, I thought this for a while, but watching her live yesterday, is probably Grace Clinton in terms of talent.
Maisie Simmons as well played very, very well yesterday.
Maisie Simmons played well, but then Reece, I don't know what you think. Grace Clinton, great young player. Maisie Simmons, great young player. Lucy Watson, great young player. They're not at senior team level yet. They're not.
Yeah,
close.
Where does Grace play?
She's a midfielder.
Which club? Not
Everton.
She'll get a move. The other one will get a move, and we all know Lucy will get a move. They'll all go to big clubs.
Of course they will, because eventually they end up where they should, and that comes back to what I said earlier about why every national team in the world is made up of players from the sort of top 3-4 clubs.
But the thing is, though, what I will say, that Maya, she had to stay at Brighton, I think, correctly, because she knew if she went to City, Chelsea, they're not going to play her. Look at LJ. They don't play kids. So what, that's why I think, if anything, the next best step for her, and this is me being biased, I'm not going to lie, is Man United. Because if they need full-backs, she can play centre-back. And then, yeah, she will get a call-up because then she's been through that pathway. But, I feel like you're talking about Jess Park. We have talked about it, and I do want to move on. But Jess Park, 2 goals, and you were talking about as if she's the second coming of Christ. And that's because she's wearing a City badge.
No, but that again, you accused me of bias saying I like Jess Park because she plays for Manchester City. I like Jess Park because I think she's a very good young player. Simply, I don't think she should be in the squad yet. And I didn't, people jumped on me. You jumped on me at the time when I tweeted it during
Lucy
the
Watson is better than Jess Park. Lucy Watson, that's what I'll say. She plays week in, week out. I see her a lot. Yes, there's areas where she can improve, but for me, if anyone's ready, she's ready more than Jess Park.
Lucy Watson's playing against championship teams. Jess Park's playing against top WSL teams.
Yeah, but she scored against Leicester and you were jazzing it up. Leicester is a championship team, in my opinion. The bottom half, you're scoring against City and Chelsea, fair enough.
If Lucy Watson goes to Manchester City and starts scoring against top teams, then yeah, I'll start saying she should be in the England squad. At the minute, she's scoring against Watford and Blackburn and London City. This is nothing against Lucy. I love Lucy to bits, and she'll get there one day. You can't be picking someone for England because they're scoring against teams that are at the bottom of the second
scored
division.
Against Leicester. Leicester, Chelsea put 9 past Leicester. People were saying put LJ in the first team because she scored a goal against Leicester. Leicester and Watford. No, maybe not Watford, but Leicester and London City Lionesses. Yeah, Leicester maybe a bit better, but for me, it's not miles apart. The bottom of the WSL and the top of the Championship, not miles apart.
So if you don't think Jess Park should be in, why do you think Lucy Watson should?
Playing week in, week out.
But,
doing it week in, week out. Doing it in more pressure situations.
At a lower level?
Well, like I said, when they're playing against the same level, really. Leicester and London City. Yeah, obviously, maybe the majority of it is lower, but I don't know.
Nat, we spoke a lot about youngsters on this show, and obviously Reece has got a few. So let's just bring Reece in because we was going to talk. Well, we still can still talk about it, but just for a shorter time. Reece, obviously, you're fantastic at building up your players, and you have got a good standard of players. We do follow them on Twitter. We follow their results, and obviously you know them very well as well. But Natalie did raise a good point, before we went on air about how much should we promote the players? Should we promote them to obviously support them and get them noticed, which is great, or should we do what me and Natalie do on this show and not overhype some of our youngsters because we don't want to put the pressure on the shoulders? Reece, how do you find that line between over promoting them and under promoting them?
Listen, whenever a player comes to me, they tend to come with the same reason for coming to me. They want to be a professional footballer, whether they're in the National League, the Championship, or the Super League, or the WSL Academy. They come to me because they want to be a professional footballer, because that's what everyone wants to be. Look at our transitional rate ratio. We've had over 82% of our global client base transition from amateur to professional. A lot of them have come through the WSL Academy. Are they the most talented players in the country? Probably not, because the majority aren't in the national teams. But we build them and we build them and we create leverage through building a narrative and giving the players a character and a personality, because a lot of the clubs don't. And again, the players know when they come to me that they're going to get sold. Not to a new team, but sold across social media. And if players are performing well, I mean, we was talking off air. How many people would have known about Rio Hardy 2.5 years ago? None. Because she's playing in Cyprus. If I'd have gone to 100 journalists, 99 would have said, we're not doing a story with Rio Hardy because she plays in Cyprus. But yet, came to England, and arguably in the first season, she's had a very, very good transition back to England. But in terms of overhyping, regardless on what I say about players, they'll only achieve what their ability allows them to achieve, with or without my words. But if I've got a player in the WSL Academy that's a striker, that's going and scoring 20, 30 goals a season, and the club's not pushing them because they're under 18, so they're not on a contract, so another club can come and take them on a 7-day approach, and you're losing a player then for free that's going to be an asset to your company. The mainstream media don't want to run a story because they're an unknown person. That only leaves me then to go and sell that player. If they then come and become a professional footballer whilst under my banner at Next Gen Sports and Entertainment, I've done what they've asked me to do, which is make them a professional footballer. I work for a player. I do what the player instructs me to do. If I can't move a player unless the player tells me they want to move clubs, I work for the player. If a player's in form, they get pushed. If a player's out of form, it's hard for me to push that player. And that goes for any salesman. If you've got a car that doesn't start when you put the key in, you can't really sell the car. But if you've got a car there that's the best on the forecourt, of course you're going to go and push it.
The only thing I want to, I watch, well, Rich knows, I mean, you know Reece, I'm very well clued up on, I suppose, loads of young players. You know, I look at sort of Freya Gregory. I was watching her when she was at Birmingham Devs. She went for Villa Devs. I was hyping her when she was in Villa Devs because I saw her play against Man United. She was always the standout player. Then obviously, you know, I think she would have got called up at Brum, but obviously she went to Villa. I knew she'd get her contract. I was absolutely delighted when she got her contract. Now she's at Leicester. There's God knows where she's going to go. I think the sky's the world. There's options for her this season, whether she goes back to Villa, goes to Leicester, goes somewhere else. You know, the world of options. But I looked at her the first time I saw her, bang, she's the one. Like you say, she was the standout in the thing, and that was against us. You know, and we ended up winning. Maz scored and all that.
She'll have also been a very good player for the 3 years previous. But if no one knows about her until she's burst on the scene, we talk about Alice Higginbottom a lot. And whenever I do an interview, a lot of people ask me about Alice Higginbottom. There'll be a lot of unsettled people in the England squad in 3 or 4 years because I am that confident that in 3 years she'll be a senior international. I am that confident because she's the best 17-year-old that I've seen. I know, Natalie, you disagree with this. But the 17-year-old, she's the best I've seen.
I'm not even going to... I love you, Reece. I do. But that's scandalous what you've said. And when you were hyping her, I was like, who's this girl? Who's this girl? I was looking around. I was asking other people. But I just was like, who is this girl? And then I've known someone who's gone to watch her. And they said she didn't, not in a horrible way. I'm sure she'll be a professional. And I wish her the best. I don't know her. I'm sure. But then I look at some of my girls. And like I said about Freya, girls that stand out. And I don't know her whole story. I don't know where she's been. So sorry if I'm being a bit.
When did the person go to watch her because she's not played for Nottingham Forest since she's been signed with me because she's been injured?
I don't know. Maybe it was a couple of before then she signed with you.
But what I'm saying is my job is to go and put Alice Higginbottom on the map because when you're at Nottingham Forest or any club in the National League, you do get overlooked. But if you're performing consistently very, very well and your ability is allowing you to push on, I have to go and put you on the map and open a door for you in the Championship and then hopefully in the Super League after that.
I get bigging it up. I get it. I do it with my own players. Look at me, like we were talking about Honor. When she came in, I said she's the best fullback in the league. And look, she's not. It's not because I've said that. She's lived up to her own hype. Well, she didn't even have hype. I made the hype for her. So, and all those fans made the hype for her. But you're sitting there saying Alice Higginbottom is going to be in the thing. And I'm thinking, the only player that I think that I've seen that, I mean, Rich says it. Rich went to watch the Devs. And he says none of them are ready. Okay. But the only player that I saw her recently, Megan Schofield, and she is the best. Her and Delphi Cole, if it's not going to be Alice Higginbottom, it's going to be one of them two. I don't know if you came to the Dev match or if you saw it, but those two.
They're attached to Super League clubs. Alice Higginbottom isn't, so she's on a different journey to the other two. The other two are still playing in academy football. Alice Higginbottom's in senior football. Why the other two?
Delphi was playing. Delphi was playing for Birmingham first team.
Week in, week out.
On the bench, yes.
On a team that typically goes and loses 4, 5, 6-0 every weekend.
Well, Birmingham do lose 4, 5, 6.
They're on different trajectories. Alice Higginbottom's come through senior football. She's been in senior football for 2 years. In 15 years old, she was in senior football. She's 17 now. She's learned to trade in the National League, and she'll get a big move.
Let's see. Maybe she'll go to Sheffield. You know, I know they're looking at Rich. What do you say about that? Alice Higginbottom at Sheffield.
You've seen Alice Higginbottom in training with you, and she holds her own at Sheffield United.
It's not with the money Reece is demanded.
But do you think she's going to be in the Championship then? But this is what then someone's told me, Reece. I've not seen her, so I can't say. But I'm just saying of what people are saying. That she's a good player, no doubt. But she's not going to be, you know, maybe low level. Maybe Leicester. That's a, you know, that.
Who's this? Alice Higginbottom?
Yeah.
You've not seen her play?
Not me. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying what people tell me, Reece.
Well, when have they seen her? Because she's been injured for the last 3
I
months.
I don't know. So. I'm just saying what I'm the report.
The beauty of this is like I've watched Alice a little bit training with us, but I can't make a huge judgment of training. I've never seen her play in a game, but at the end of the day, like, maybe Reece does believe that. I genuinely think with some agents, they don't believe half the stuff they say because they are trying to
don't even go to watch a
players.
football match. So whether they believe or not is a different question because they never even go and watch their players play.
But like Reece, at the end of the day, Reece is right. You know, in terms of how he sells his players, there's not any other agent really that sells their players as much as Reece does. But Reece will live or die by what he's doing now in 3-4 years. If Alice is playing at the top, everyone's going to go, well, you know, Reece is a genius. If she's not,
if Alice Higginbottom,
it's only Reece only affects his own reputation. If Alice isn't,
but then I love you, Reece. You know I do. But then look at Rio. I love Rio, and I think she started off on fire, and it made. I don't know if Durham was the right move for Rio.
Right. Okay.
And I know we talked about it.
Rio Hardy signed with me 3 years ago with one aim to be a professional footballer in England. The year she signed for me, not one club would even see her on trial except from Leicester. She had a chance to go and play in the Champions League. We marketed the life out of her in the Champions League because she backed it up on a pitch. In the Champions League, she was a top goal scorer in the group stage the year that she came home to England. We marketed the life out of it. Not one journalist was willing to run a story with Rio or Steph Hardy, but we did it internally at Next Gen Sports and Entertainment. She then came back and signed a professional contract with Coventry United. We achieved the one thing that she employed me to achieve, make her a professional footballer. She then moved for a transfer fee. How many players do you know this season, domestically, that's moved for a transfer fee in England? I actually can only name you one, Rio Hardy. How many other clubs have actually paid a transfer fee for a player this year?
But is she professional now?
Yeah, no, that's not my question. My question is, how many clubs have paid a transfer fee for a player?
I don't know. Well, hasn't Chelsea played for that that Russian girl? Didn't they pay?
I'm on about domestically in England. Not one club has paid for a player from another club domestically in England. Not to my knowledge.
Didn't Dan Carter? Didn't they pay for her? Brighton. I swear they played
this season.
In the summer.
I'm on about mid-season in January. Typically,
no one pays in January.
Exactly, but they did for Rio Hardy. But what we achieved what Rio Hardy employed me to achieve, make her a professional footballer in England. I'm only as good as what my players are. And I can only, if players don't agree with me, they move on. Or we get rid of a player, or the player goes and signs for another agent. If I achieve what the player instructs me to achieve, I've done my job. If in 12 months' time, Alice Higginbottom is a professional footballer, I have done what Alice Higginbottom has employed me to do as an agent.
Reece, one thing that you said a little earlier about what you can do is, or what you do is give players personalities as well, or show their personalities. I think that's really good. We don't see enough of that. Is there anything that you think more can be done regarding the championship level to kind of bring out people's characters? Because we don't see much of them on Twitter because, you know, they don't have many followers. You know, is there anything that comes to your mind what women's football can do just to kind of put their characters out there?
No, it'll never change until players are on 3-4 year contracts because there's such stubbornness and anxiety from clubs because they know that in 6 months' time they're at risk of losing this player that's out of contract. So they all of a sudden start promoting the player less. I've got one of the players at the minute that in her position is statistically the best in the top 2 divisions. Doesn't get very much promotion from the club, but she gets it from me and the Championship Twitter. But yet doesn't get in the national team because there's someone else that sits on the bench every week for another club. But yeah, the minute she's statistically the best player in the top 2 divisions. So again, we're sort of linking back to topic number 1 on this. But until players become contracted to 3-4 years time, 3-4 year contracts, clubs are going to stop pushing players. I'm not saying Rich does this because Rich is probably one of the only journalists that I know that doesn't have too much bias. He's biased on a lot of stuff, but not on all stuff. But a lot of the other clubs are quite strategic in the way that they push players, especially for players under 18 years old, because they know that they can move on a 7-day approach.
I just want to end the show with Rich's thoughts on the way Reece does push his players as a journalist point of view. You know, is it like music to your ears because it kind of gives you a story, gives you something to talk about? Or does it work against you in any way?
A lot of them are Championship players, so a lot of the journalists can't be bothered to cover them.
I think, from a journalist point of view, you want agents that are open. Of course you do. Again, it comes back to looking after number one. We're all selfish in our own jobs at the end of the day. But being an agent, being a journalist, being a PR person, every single one of those jobs contradicts the other in terms of how you try and work with each other. As someone who looks after the media for Sheffield United, I want agents promoting our players as little as possible because we want to keep hold of them. That's natural. Do you know what I mean? So it's how it is. You know, if I was working for Nottingham Forest and I had an agent touting one of my players as the best 17-year-olds ever seen, I'd be doing my head in.
Every single week, I can guarantee that at least one club will phone me. It tends to be a Championship club or a National League club if we've got someone that's transitioned from the WSL Academy to the National League, just to go and get senior experience. I can confidently say at least once a week or once every 2 weeks, a club will phone me and say, just slow down a little bit on this promotion. Why?
Well, me and Reece joke about this. Like,
I thought clubs were interested in player development and making them achieve what they deserve to achieve.
No,
obviously.
We're not. No, like me and Reece joke about this, like, because we've just had a couple of players on trial that are Reece's clients, and like I always joke about, I don't want them to sign because they'll be gone in 3 months' time somewhere else. But that, like, can I? One question, Reece. Like, and this is genuine. Like, I'm not taking it because I'm genuinely interested because this is part of. It's sort of intertwines with my job in terms of how many young players we have. But so you take Alice, for example. Alice is 17. She's young. You're bigging her up as, you know, best 17-year-old in the country and whatnot. Do you promote your players differently based on their personality? Do you speak to, because like that's a lot to put on a player, like for someone like Alice to go out there and say, oh my God, my agent's saying I'm the best 17-year-old in the country. Like that's a lot of pressure to live up to for whichever club she goes and signs. If a player came to you and said, look, Reece, you know, maybe you do think that, but I'm not comfortable with it, would you promote slightly less?
Absolutely, because they're the boss at the end of the day. They employ me. I'm contracted to them. So if they instruct me to do something, my job is to go and see out that instruction. However, I can confidently say off the back of how we promote Alice, when did we sign Alice? 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago? Look at how many 17-year-olds have signed since then because they've seen the way that we push Alice and they've thought, I'm not getting this push. Not from a club anyway. I've not got an agent that's pushing me. Look at how many 17-year-olds we've signed that have been with other agents because the other agents haven't pushed them this way. And they've come to us because they like the way that we push them, because we put players on the map. If I go out there and say, best 17-year-old in the country, people's ears tend to stand up. But with Alice, I genuinely believe it.
I mean, that's the beauty of football, isn't it? Everyone, you think that about your girl. I obviously think that about other players that I see in WSL Academy. And, you know, in a way, well, when I see WSL Academy, I get why they don't promote it as much. I mean,
Because
they did the big... No, but I don't know, because it's like what Rich says. It is that kind of, you know, not saying that, but, you know, safeguarding, looking after them, making sure they're all right. You know, a lot of, like we said, WSL Academy are coming through the 19s, and then England put out little things. I mean, I look at Saf, I don't know, she's about 18, 17, I don't know, you know, the goalkeeper for Wales, and yeah, but we're not going to see any of those saves. But I know, I've seen them myself. I know how good Saf can be. But, and you know, she's had a time with the Man United first team and all that kind of stuff. But it is that kind of, I mean, what do you think then Reece and Rich? Clubs might say safeguarding, you know, she's different. Even when LJ came and signed for us, I remember Casey talking about different change rooms she had to be in and all this kind of thing, and how much media she could do because of her age. She signed when she was 16, that kind of thing.
I understand that aspect. However, at 17 years old, you should be on the map, in my opinion, if you're a very good footballer, because you should be getting pushed by England if you're in the national squad. If you're at Man United, you should be getting pushed by Man United. You shouldn't not be getting pushed because the club is scared of losing you because you're not on a contract, so you can move on a 7-day approach. And then you're losing an asset for the future. Watch how many clubs push players. As soon as they turn 18, a player will get more of a push because they're contracted and they are then an asset to the company or to the football club. That's what annoys me with clubs. Because why 6 weeks before when we were still 17 have you not really mentioned them? But as soon as they turn 18, oh, we've got an 18-year-old here in the WSL Academy that's got 25 goals. Well, she had 22 when she was 17, but you've not mentioned her name yet. But it's because you know contractually a Championship club or another WSL club can come and take her on a 7-day notice, on a 7-day approach. Well,
I just want to know Rich's point, because obviously he works for a club. safeguard. I don't know. I don't know the rules, obviously, as well as you two.
I think for me, like the safeguarding thing's not a major issue, like because we had this discussion with our youth cup run. We got to the semi-finals, and I was saying to the club, look, are we okay to put these players' names out there? They were all under 16s, and we could because we had parental permission for every player that we could use their names publicly. In terms of the girls in the first team, I mean, yeah, look, the two that stand out, obviously, in terms of the two girls that are regularly in the England youth setup, obviously Lucy and then Mia Enderby. There's two sides to it. Look, we don't want to lose Lucy. We don't want to lose Mia. But it comes back to the first thing I said at the start. Players promote themselves. Like, me and Reece talk about this a lot. Lucy has an agent. They're not one of the more, like, public ones for pushing their players. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what her agency does. It doesn't matter if I try and play it down. What Lucy's doing on the pitch at the end of the day will be the decisive factor in what she does in the summer, if she leaves, who she signs for, how high she gets. I can play it down as much as we want, and we don't really. We're not, I want to promote our players. We're proud of what Lucy does. She scored for England yesterday. We're not going to hide that away. We want to big her up, because she's earned it. She's working hard, but it also comes down to player personality in terms of how much we put them out there. Lucy's quite comfortable media-wise. She's quite a confident talker. If we ask her to do something in-house, generally she will do it. Mia's a little bit different. She's a little bit less confident, doesn't really like doing interviews. So it's not we're hiding Mia away. It's just I'm not going to make a young player that's only 16 years old do something that she doesn't want to do. In terms of national media, you've just got a responsibility at the end of the day. And again, there's a balance, because when we brought Ebony Salmon in, we were instructed by Man United. All those girls were under 18, and Man United didn't want us doing any media. Ebony now, over in America, is doing loads, and she's really confident, like it's chalk and cheese compared to when she came to us. So you have to get them used to it, and I want to get Lucy used to it, and I want to get Mia used to it, and we do our own in-house stuff. But like with Lucy, when we played, because Lucy had obviously won Player of the Month back in September, when we played Liverpool at the start of October at Bramall Lane, we were inviting down BBC, ITV, local radio down to the training ground. The only player every single one of them asked to speak to was Lucy. Lucy was 17 at the time. I'm not going to go out and put a 17-year-old on live national television when all she's ever done before is one in-house interview. I'm never going to put a 17-year-old in that position. So it's not just a case of you hiding them away because you don't want them to leave, or you don't want people to give them attention. They're going to do that on their own by performing well. Lucy's one of the top scorers in the league. She's playing for England. Clubs know all about Lucy. Even if I never mentioned her on Twitter, all the clubs know about Lucy. But for me, there's also a responsibility to, same with what Reece said about his players, they come first at the end of the day. If they're not comfortable with something, if they don't want to do something, I'm not going to put them in a position to do that.
Mm-hmm.
However, I don't think if someone's 17 and not comfortable or not confident enough to do interviews, that they shouldn't be given any attention. So if we can take that pressure off them slightly, and my voice be pushing them. But also, I'll just caveat one more time. You sort of just mentioned about Lucy's agent not being sort of one of the public ones. And like, if you look on my social media, for example, I've got a very good relationship with like Barry Hearn, because I'm obsessed with how he promotes boxing and different sports. I'm under the illusion that if clubs don't know who certain agents are of certain players, do the clubs really know how to make contact with that player? And then other players then missing out on potential moves because the agent's not really pushing them. So the clubs doesn't know who to contact to inquire about the players. I sort of looked at it from that side, and I think I'd be quite confident to say that a lot of the clubs now know who Alice Higginbottom's agent is because of the way that we've pushed her. Which now, if Chelsea, Arsenal, Man United, Man City, Leicester, anyone else at Villa, if they do want to come and put an approach and or inquire about Alice, they know who to contact because they know that she's with us. And I think that's a benefit. There's obviously pros and cons to this, but I think that's a benefit of having an agent that's not outspoken, but if he believes something, but he's not scared to go and put his reputation on the line and go and say it if he believes it.
I want to come back, and I know we're going to just what you said about like all the girls that you had from United and how they would sort of and you talked about Ebony and how and even if I look at Tooney, Ella Toon, I look at her now in interviews. She wasn't like that when she first joined Man United, and like you say, it's. I think United probably helped her. I mean, even Hansen. There was one where they did it all MUTV, and they all sat down, and it was Hansen, Millie, and Shivy, and it's like you say, chalk and cheese between that interview and even if you interview, say, Kirsty Hansen now, and when you talk about Ebony out there, but even I look at Ebony sometimes, and I do think she is more confident from being out in America. But then sometimes I've looked at pictures and thought, oh, Ebony, the Ebony that I knew, even from looking at her, watching her week in, week out, seeing her week in, week out, knowing her mum and dad are brothers, I still know she's a shy girl deep down, Even Tooney, Ella Toon, she's more confident now. But remember when she was however old when they joined, they were shy. They all were shy. But all the confidence comes out, I think, maybe through hype, because Man United fans, we've hyped all our players. They all get songs, they all get flags, they all get that. So maybe that helped, yeah. And like what Reece doing, maybe it does help them a bit. Come out of the shell, be more confident. But yeah, with the 21s, if I look at it, say like me, I do try and, well, some of them, like you say, you can't help but hype them. You watch it and you're thinking, God, this, Maz scoring week in, week out, Garner, Eleanor Ashton now's doing the sort of same for Man United 21s. But, I don't know. There's maybe ones that we don't say the names as much, but I still think they've got the same, if not more, confidence. And, in a way, sometimes the ones that are the most hype might not make it the most, if you get what I mean. Because they believe that hype.
I think potentially United's sort of philosophy on that did change a little bit, because we were definitely told when we took Ebony, Norm and Fran that we couldn't even do like in-house media with them. And with Ebony, I always remember, obviously, when she left us at the end of that season, she went to Bristol, and we went to, as a journalist, we went to a media day at St George's Park, and every team brought a couple of players along, and this happens every year. Obviously, the last couple of years it's been virtual, but one of the players Bristol brought was Ebony, and she was like a rabbit in the headlights because United had never really let her do anything. And like I said, now when I've heard her do interviews, she did the podcast with Amy a while back. She's a lot more confident now, and that's the difficult side of it, because Lucy's done in-house media, Mia's done in-house media. Like we try and get them to do it, because, like I said, for me, Lucy will play in the WSL, Mia will play in the WSL, they might play for England, and I've said this to them: if you play for England, 50% of what you do in your England camps will be media. So I need to get you used to that now, but I need to build you up. I'm not just going to throw you straight on BBC live television to do an interview before a Liverpool game. It's just building you up bit by bit in terms of trying to get you to do some in-house stuff, and then what's the next step after that. But I think United's philosophy did change, because when we took Palms, when we took M. Ramsey, when we took Molly Green, when we took Tara this year, they had no issues like with in-house media. We could do all the media we wanted with those players, not just in terms of like their announcement interview, but things during the season, pre-match, post-match. Like, there was no issues there. So, like I said, for me, you take it on each player. I mean, me and Reece joke all the time. Like, obviously, Rima Lord-Mears is one of his clients. She's the only player that's never, ever done any media at Chef, because she just point blank refuses to. She just doesn't want to do it. If Rima doesn't want to do it, I'm not going to make her. And she's one of the, more experienced players now. So, with the younger ones, you do what you can to try and prepare them. But, at the end of the day, like we said, they're the boss. If they don't want to do something, you can't make them. But there is that balance of, you've also got to try and prepare them for what might come, later in their career.
Let's just end the show on this last question here. And there's been so many comments, but I just wanted to let these guys chat, so I haven't really asked too many questions. But this one's for you, Rich. How is Tara Bourne playing?
Not really seen much of her at Blackburn, to be honest. I know she's been playing every week, which I think was part of why the decision was taken for her to go there. She was talented, don't get me wrong, and I think it was a difficult one in terms of her coming to us. We got offered her quite early, and it was a good option, because the thing with Tara was she's versatile. I think she's a midfielder. I think she'll be a midfielder. It was going to be hard for her to come into our team and take that role with the players we have. She started off in a back three, did okay. She wasn't really physically there at that time as a centre back. You could see it growing in her, and the best spell she sort of had with us was probably at right back, in terms of being able to get on the ball a little bit. But you could see she grew in confidence. You know, there were games where she'd start throwing herself into tackles, and I think it's hard for any player. Like a first loan is very hard, like because it's your first real step into senior football. I think Blackburn's probably better for her because she is playing every week and she's playing in sort of what is her natural position. But again, that can come back to the argument we had earlier. You know, I saw United fans last year saying we want Tara in the team, and you know she stepped down to the Championship, which is nowhere near the level of Man United, and she found it tough because it is tough, and it'll be a good experience for her.
Yeah.
Any of the players that have come to Chef, it's been a good experience. I don't think any of them have gone back in a worse position. You know, Ebony got a move to the WSL off the back of what she did for us, and obviously now's in America. Some of the girls are still attached to Man United. Molly Green went to a WSL club. You know, Palms initially went to a WSL club. So it's good experience for them, you know, and I think that is the best route probably for the young players in the WSL, you know, to go to either Championship or National League, whether it's loans or dual regs and play, because that is proper first team physical football against players, some players that are twice your age and twice your size as well. That's what it's about. You know, youth team football will only get you so far in terms of preparing you for first team football. So I hope it's been a good experience for Tara, because she was a really nice girl, loved her to bits, and you know, there was definitely talent there. I just don't think possibly we were the right loan for her in the first place.
Yeah, I just want to touch on Tara. She's never a centre back. I don't understand why they ever put her there. It's not her position. She's always played midfield, going up through all the ages. It seems now England are putting her at centre back, which doesn't make sense to me. If she is playing week in, week out as we're saying, like that sort of deep line midfield or centre midfield, whatever she's playing. But I mean, the reports I hear from Blackburn, I actually went to a game and it got called off. I was due to see her the Lose game, but I've not seen her play for Blackburn. But what people are saying is just steady, not spectacular, but not, you know, sort of bad, if you get what I mean. But yeah, it's good that she's versatile, but for me, she's a midfielder, 110%, and that's where I want to see more of her.
We are going to end the show. Thank you very much, Reece and Rich, for staying over. It was planned for 1 hour, but it's very hard to finish that show when everyone still had like loads of stuff to say, and loads of people watching, loads of people in the comments. So thank you, Natalie. Thank you for organising these great talking points. We could have gone on for twice as long if you wanted to.
Yeah. Well, the next one will be about the devs and the 21s and the young players, and we'll talk about who really is the best 17-year-old. But yeah, no, I'm joking.
It's been an excellent show. I always enjoy listening to you guys talk. Sometimes I forget that I'm actually on the show. I just enjoy listening to you guys. So yeah, it's been great. It's been a great one. We're back tomorrow. Friday Night Fans Forum, 7:00. Saturday Night Live on Saturday. And that's it. We've got a weekend break, haven't we? So yeah, all good. Thank you very much, guys. We shall see you again soon.